The HPT returns to the epicenter of the poker world, Las Vegas, Nevada. We're at the fabulous Palms Casino Resort, and players from around the country, along with the poker sharks that call Vegas their home, have descended on the Palms this week for high-flying poker action. 4 day-one flights and a long day two have given us one of the most accomplished HPT final tables ever. A bracelet winner, a 2011 WSOP November Niner, a past HPT champion, and online superstars are this week's Elite Six. There's over $20 million of combined earnings between them. And tonight, they all have their sights set on being the next HPT champion.
My name is Dan O'Brien. I'm from Long Island, New York.
I'm Leo Wolpert. I'm from Fairfax, Virginia, and I'm currently a poker pro.
My name is Matt Marafioti. I'm from Toronto, Canada.
My name is Philip Collins. I'm a professional poker player. I live in Las Vegas.
My name is Steve Gross. I'm from Marlboro, New Jersey, but I live in Vegas these days.
Hey, my name's Terry Presley. I'm from Northwest Arkansas, the Fayetteville area. I did come to win, so we'll see what happens.
They come from all walks of life, each with a story to tell. All they need is a chip and a chair. It's an open casting call for those who love the game. This ain't your weekend home game. This is the HPT.
Sit right down, put on your poker face. You with the big dogs now. Better bring your best game. Talk trash all you want. To me, it's all the same. You won't leave with much when you come in second place. I'm the one with the stack showing 7 to the jack. Gon' cry to your mama cause I'm sending you back. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. Last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand.
Hello and welcome to the HPT tonight at the Palms Casino Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada for one of the most anticipated final tables in HPT history. I'm Chris Hansen, and this man to my left thinks that right now he is in the bosom of the beast. He loves this town. Fred Bevel.
I do love this town. Anybody who knows me knows how much I love this town, and the Palms has been great to us all week long. Earlier, we hosted a party in one of their fabulous sky villas. We've been enjoying the fine dining restaurants all week long, and when it came time to play poker, we were treated to some real fun action.
As you'd expect in Vegas, the field at the HPT's main event this week was simply stellar. And this final table represents the best of the next generation of up-and-coming poker players. But a little old school is represented as well, with past HPT champion and amateur poker player Terry Presley. Terry took down the HPT's event in Oklahoma earlier this season. Now Terry's looking to become only the second two-time HPT champion.
You know, making 2 final tables in just 3 events is an impressive feat for Terry, but to repeat as champion will not be easy. He's going against a bracelet winner, a 2011 November Niner, and some of the internet's most accomplished professionals, including one who bought an Aston Martin with his online frequent player points. Whoever takes this event down is going to have to bring the A+ game.
All right, should be a great final table. Let's meet some of the players and then get to the felt and kick off this final table.
I'm Leo Wolpert. I'm from Fairfax, Virginia, and I'm currently a poker pro.
My name is Dan O'Brien. I'm from Long Island, New York. I'm a professional poker player.
My name's Steve Gross. I'm from Marlboro, New Jersey, but I live in Vegas these days.
Well, certainly I was kind of doubting my game a couple months ago. I took a couple months off to study for the bar, so concentrating on something else and kind of leaving poker behind was a pretty big obstacle. But when I got back, I felt a little more refreshed about the game, and it was a lot easier to think about, all the great things I've gotten from poker, as opposed to, some of the more negative things, the tilt, the downswings, all that kind of stuff. Also, I had to drive through traffic. That was pretty rough.
The players in general, I actually know several of them very well. Phil Collins is one of my very good friends out here. I know him well. I know Matt Marafioti. Steve Gross plays excellent. He's been killing it online for years. Terry, the HPT legend, who won an event, I don't know, sometime this season, and he's all right. He's definitely an interesting player. I'm not used to his style, so I'd say that I'm more worried about the people that I know.
The restaurant business is something I've always been interested in. When I was in high school, I took a vocational program for young chefs and thought I might go in that route. And then I went to college for business management, also thinking, you know, restaurants somewhere down the line. And then just started playing poker and kind of put that to the back burner because the money coming in from poker was a lot better than anything I could make in college that far.
Thank you very much, Leo, Steve, and Dan. We'll meet the rest of this final table a little bit later on. And Fred, here is the prize money for tonight at the Palms.
Almost $72,000 going to our next HPT champion. Everybody guaranteed to make almost $15,000.
And here's the ammunition in front of these very talented players at this final table. Leo is our big stack and Dan is our short stack.
Matt is close to Leo with $1.065 million in play. Really, it's anybody's match right now. Blind starting off at this final table at $15,000 and $30,000 with a $5,000 chip ante.
Leo folds over to Steve. Steve looks down at pocket aces. Steve Gross was the 2009 Card Player Online Player of the Year.
Steve put poker on the back burner after legislation forced online play out of the U.S.
I haven't heard about that. What was that again?
It's a nasty thing. Just had the 1-year anniversary of poker's Black Friday.
Steve is going to raise it up. He makes it $60,000 over to Dan O'Brien.
Dan's got the working man's hand 9-5. He's going to fold.
Deuce 10 for Matt into the muck to Phil Collins.
November Niner from 2011 finished in 5th place.
It's kind of like being a Grammy nominee or an Academy Award nominee or a winner. You're always going to be known as such for the rest of your career.
Big accomplishment, making the November 9 out of a 7,000 plus player field.
In seat 6, Terry Presley will forever be known as an HPT champion. He makes the call, and here comes the flop. It's King 3-3, and bad news for Terry. He caught a piece of this.
Yeah, Terry's hit top pair here and is crushed. And now it's all about chip extraction for Steve.
Terry's first act. He's from Huntsville, Arkansas. Won an event a couple of weeks ago in Oklahoma on the HPT.
80. And music to Steve's ears. Terry is leading out, makes it 80,000 to go.
Absolutely nothing on that flop that's going to scare Steve away from this, and I don't anticipate him raising either.
And it looks like Steve is just going to smooth call here.
Absolutely. This is a great trap. It's almost a given that he's got a king. The turn is a 4. Terry's first act again with $325,000 in this pot.
Let's see what Terry does on the turn here after being flat called on the flop.
Usually a flat call would indicate somebody is on a draw. Maybe they have a smaller pair. Terry checks over to Steve.
That's a pretty dry board, especially for a raised pot. And Steve is going to let another streak go by here, hoping Terry will do the bidding again on the river.
And the river is a 6 of diamonds. Terry first to act again.
And Terry is slowing down. He's going to check again.
I'm guessing as long as the bet isn't too big from Steve here on the river, Terry is going to call just to see if his pair of kings are good.
Well, there's $325,000 in the pot now. What's that number to you? 100,000, 150,000?
I'd say somewhere between 150 and 200,000. That's probably what I'd be betting.
Well, let's see what the 2009 Card Player of the Year does.
Fred, I don't expect him to have the skills that I have.
He picks up a couple of stacks, moves them to the middle. It's 190,000. So he's in the range we just speculated. Let's see if Terry's going to pay him off.
I believe he's in the range I just speculated.
Call.
No one likes a bragger.
And Terry, as predicted, is going to make the call on the river.
Get him.
You can't really blame Terry. He was getting pretty good value for making the call. His pair of kings in this situation, obviously against the aces, just no good.
Steve Gross scoops a monster pot here, adding to his chip stack. We move on now. It's Queen Deuce for Matt Marafioti. Those are going to go into the muck.
Over to Phil, Jack 8. Well, Fred, if that hand is a representation of what we can expect here at our final table tonight on the HPT, should be a great show from the Palms in Las Vegas.
Phil has a suited Jack-8, and he is going to lead out here. Makes it 60,000 to go.
Other than recently getting married, his life pretty much sounds like what I'd want to do, Fred. His typical day usually involves poker, golf, or video games with friends.
That's my typical day. Just really makes my bosses mad.
All right, action is folded around as we get to Steve in the 2 seat. Steve looks down at ace deuce, and that is going to be folded. And now to Dan O'Brien.
No cards for anybody, and it's the Rays from the November Niner that's going to scoop this pot.
More poker as we continue HPT's first ever event here at the Palms Resort Casino in Las Vegas. Welcome back to the HPT at the Palms Casino Resort with Fred Bevel. I'm Chris Hansen. We've met one half of our final table. Now let's meet the rest of the players.
Hey, my name's Terry Presley. I'm from Northwest Arkansas, the Fayetteville area.
My name is Philip Collins. I'm a professional poker player. I live in Las Vegas.
My name is Matt Marafioti. I'm from Toronto, Canada.
Hey, I'm extremely proud to just be here at the final table. You know, my kids are proud of me, my wife. Everybody's thrilled that I'm here again. So day 2, I started last place in chips. So just making the final table, I'm happy about that. Hopefully I can catch some cards and hopefully I can win it. We'll see. I'm just excited to be here, thrilled to be with the HPT gang again.
Playing 8 days in the main event is an experience that almost no one gets to have. I think that in those 8 days, you become a better poker player. By the end of the tournament, you're better than you were at the beginning. The pressure that comes with being on camera and playing against people who are also playing on TV for the first time, those experiences are invaluable.
I've been deep in so many tournaments with Dan O'Brien or, G-Boro, Steve Gross, and UFC Phildo. They're 2 of the greatest online poker players. And, Phildo had that great run in the World Series main, both up-and-coming live players as well. So, it's definitely an interesting mix and overall a tough lineup.
Matt, Phil, and Terry, best of luck at our final table today. Here is our updated chip count.
It is all Leo Wolpert right now with 1.265 million in play. He's got 26% of the chips in play, and we can see that everybody's moved up in this final table in their stacks, with the exception of a couple of players. These guys aren't afraid to push the action around. We're going to see a lot of chips flying in the next few hands, I think.
All right, action is going to be now on Matt. And it looks like Matt might be considering playing this hand. I realize they have a lot of skill, but Fred, a hand like that, even these guys aren't going to mess around with that at this early juncture of our final table.
A lot of skill at this final table. 5 of these players all know each other from the online days and in the live arena. 5 of them have over $1 million or close to $1 million in career earnings. And then there's our HPT champion, Terry Presley.
Terry's trying to do it for the everyman. Do it, Terry. He's a plumber from Arkansas. Won an HPT event a couple of weeks ago. Started day 2 of this event with less than 20,000 in chips. And Fred, here he is playing for over 70K tonight.
At a table full of sharks. Phil limps in with suited 8-4. Leo flats from the small blind with King 10 offsuit. And now the option is checked by the big blind Steve with King Jack suited. So you're going to have a 3-way flop here.
And here we go. The flop is Jack 3-9 Rainbow. Leo first to act.
Well, Leo's got a gut shot straight draw. Steve flops top pair, and Phil, well, he's got an 8 and a 4.
And Phil with his 8-4 will be in the best position for the rest of this hand.
Well, the small blind limped. The big blind checked his option. So Phil is going to take his 8-4 out for a stroll. Bets 50,000. And now Leo with a gut shot straight draw. We'll have to decide if 50,000 is worth a turn.
Interesting trivia about Leo. Can you guess the game show that he was on, losing to one of the best game show contestants of all time? Get to the answer on that in just a couple of minutes.
Is that a Twitter thing? Can I play?
Sure, you can guess. He is the chip leader, and he will make the call. And now to Steve, who has the best hand currently with a pair of jacks. Is this what Steve was hoping for? Was a bet and a call after he checked this flop? If so, then I'm guessing he would be raising right here to try to get rid of one of these 2 players.
Big decision here for Steve.
Fred, it's one thing to check raise 1 player, but when you try to check raise 2 players that you're up against, that can be a little unnerving.
Well, he is staging some chips back there that don't look like calling chips.
Steve is going to make it 155,000. So back to Phil in that 8-4. So Phil lets go his 8-4. Now back to Leo.
Leo, a little more than 100,000 to make the call here. And he is going to let it go.
And look at that. Steve is able to push both of those players off of the pots, and Steve Gross going to continue to run well here at this final table at the Palms. All right, Freddie, you ready for the answer?
Go for it.
Leo Wolpert in seat 1 actually lost to Ken Jennings on Jeopardy.
Wow. I'm impressed he's smart enough to get on Jeopardy. Let's start there.
I'm going to ask that you please put your response in the form of a question. What is he lost to Ken Jennings on Jeopardy?
That's pretty amazing. Phil Collins with ace-5 makes it 60,000 to go. Over to Terry Presley, HPT champion, with wired 6s. Terry making his second final table in the last 3 events puts him way ahead in the Player of the Year race.
Terry is in the driver's seat to get those main event buy-ins and travel paid for if he does win the Player of the Year, and he's got all the chips in the middle, Freddie Bevel.
It's a good move by Terry, I think. A wired pair, 6-handed game. Let's just ship them in. Hopefully double or triple up.
All right, action has been folded around to Dan O'Brien, and now to Matt. And he will fold. And so now to Phil with ace-5. It's 140,000 more to call, and he will make the call. And Terry is going to be ahead with his pocket 6s. And we also saw that Leo also folded ace-5 as well.
Well, Phil is going to the flop with 1 overcard to Terry's pair. Terry hoping to hang on and double up at this final table.
And the flop is 4-8-6, all diamonds.
Good news for Terry is he's flopped his set. Bad news is Phil's got a gut shot straight flush draw. Any diamond, any 7, Phil will pull ahead.
And the turn, oh, it's red, but it's the 9 of hearts.
Terry hoping to fade a 7 or a diamond on the river, and he will double up.
And the river. Oh, it is a jack of diamonds. That's going to do it. HPT champ Terry Presley, who is currently in the lead for Player of the Year, is going to be leaving the Palms in 6th place tonight.
You know, lost a lot of chips early there, so I had to try to make a play right there with the pocket 6s. Phil just happened to get 4 diamonds to make the 5 high flush and beat me, so. You know, I love it when he turns his hand over. He turns over ace-5. I mean, I love that. Got a really good chance of doubling up, which is what, I mean, that's what I have to do. You know, I have to double up right there, and I flopped the set. You know, I love that, but anyway, wasn't meant to be. Wasn't my turn.
Plenty more final table action coming up on the HPT. Our home away from home, the Palms Casino Resort, this week's stop on the HPT, of course, in fabulous Las Vegas. We'll get back to the final table in a moment, but Fred, here is our updated chip count.
Phil Collins has pulled ahead. He has now got 1.285 million in chips. Steve is in 2nd place, and you can see in the swings, Matt is down 110,000, Leo down 365,000. Blinds moving up. They're now 20 and 40,000 with a 5K ante.
Phil will be first to act. 2011, when he made the WSOP main event November 9, he took 5th place, cash for $2.2 million. And he limps in with 9-10 offsuit. Over to Leo. He will fold. Now to Steve. Steve says if he wins tonight, he's going to use his money to sit courtside at Madison Square Garden to go see a Knicks game.
Nice.
That, Fred, is being a baller.
That's money well spent is what that is.
Maybe Steve can sit right next to Spike. See what Spike's up to.
Steve is going to flat call from the button with his suited Jack 10 over to Dan O'Brien. He folds. Haven't seen a lot of Dan O'Brien so far at this final table.
And 9 deuce for Matt Marafioti. Matt's got a plump $5 million in career earnings at the poker table.
Matt's first cash in poker was in 2007, and then he spent the first 5 years of his career cashing over 25 times, making 11 final tables.
2007, that's like the dark ages of poker. I mean, that's like eons ago.
Old school.
Here we go. We've got 3 players seeing this flop. It's Queen, 4, Jack with 2 spades.
Well, Matt's got a whole lot of nothing. Phil has an open-ended straight draw, and Steve has got second pair. We could see some fireworks here.
Matt checks over to Phil.
And no question, Phil is going to semi-bluff here with his open-ended draw. $165,000 in the pot now. Phil's going to fire $75,000. Action moves over now to Steve Gross.
Steve's thinking about watching Carmelo Anthony drain a 3 from the corner, just courtside seats. And also thinking about making this call.
Before Steve discovered poker in college, his plan was to go into the restaurant business with his dad and his brother.
That's a gamble.
Yeah, right. And now, since Black Friday, he's reconsidered those plans. We might see Steve go off into an entrepreneurial venture until legislation is changed.
Matt will fold, and so now we are heads up with Phil and Steve as we go to the turn. Phil's going to be first to act after we see the turn card. It's a 5.
And that's a miss for Phil Collins. He's out of position as well. Let's see if he fires a second bullet at this pot. Phil and his wife considering buying a home in Vegas, but they're going to wait till after the World Series this summer.
Sounds like the prudent thing to do.
I don't know. Not much of a real estate guy.
Phil is going to check over to Steve.
Steve here with second pair. Doesn't look like he's going to give Phil a free river card here.
You know, oddly enough, Phil and his wife are considering buying a home here in Las Vegas. Little known true fact, Steve actually lives in a van down by the river. Okay, I made that up. He doesn't. It's a cardboard box. No, I made that up too. What I do know is that Steve is going to be betting $60,000 on the turn back to Phil in his open-ended straight draw.
Ooh, that's a low price to pay for that kind of a draw, especially with the pot having $375,000 in it.
No way Phil is going to be folding here. Keep in mind, we are playing for over $70,000 tonight on the HPT here at the Palms.
Earlier when we asked Phil, he said today was just like another day at the office, but on TV. And he is going to flat call here.
Another day at the office for me as well. I woke up this morning to Fred asking me if I wanted Eggs Benedict for the 5th day in a row. And the river is an 8.
And Phil Rivers, the stone cold nuts.
Right now, you can see the calculation going on in Phil's mind. What's the exact amount I can get out of Steve at this point? And he checks, obviously hoping Steve was going to bet for him, and he did not. Steve checks behind and shows his nut straight.
I'm surprised that Phil didn't bet for value on the river there.
He must have been hoping that Steve was going to fire on the river, and Steve wasn't having any of it. So what could have been a little bit of a bigger pot probably for Phil ends up being just a marginally big pot.
Moving on now, it's ace-10 for Dan O'Brien.
Dan, you got to give him some credit. Right now, currently has prop bets working at this final table. Not so much at the final table, but Freddie's working on some physical fitness prop bets before the World Series of Poker. And Fred, his heart rate is definitely probably up now. He is all in with ace-10. And he is going to get called by pocket jacks from Steve.
Dan hasn't had a whole lot for cards at this final table. He wakes up with ace-10 and ships it in. Can't blame him for that. Unfortunately, runs into the wired jacks here. And he'll be going to the flop with 1 live card, only 3 outs.
And here comes the flop. It is 3-7 queen.
Not the flop Dan was hoping to find here.
Steve's pocket jack still ahead. And here comes the turn. It is a 10.
That's a little bit of help for Dan. Now he'll be hoping for a 10 or an ace on the river to stay alive.
All right, let's go ahead and see that river card.
And the river. It is another 3, and that will do it. Dan O'Brien is walking away from our final table tonight in 5th place.
Dan and Phil Collins, great friends, have been for many years. We're hoping to get heads up. Not tonight.
I think I played well for the most part. I was able to kind of bob and weave with a really short stack and was able to see a number of flops, which for the most part, it's really hard to do under 20 blinds. So I was happy with that. But again, I wish that I had kept that up for the last hand. Maybe just limp folded or min raise folded. It's probably better. It really is hard to say. It's kind of a sticky spot. If I have 15 blinds, I think it's a pretty clear shove. If I have 18 or 19, I'm never doing that. So it's kind of in that awkward range where I decided my best play was shoving, and now it doesn't look so good.
Don't go anywhere. We've still got more HPT final table action when we come back. Welcome back to the HPT alongside Fred Bevel. I am Chris Hansen. Time for our pro tip of the week. It's how to assess your competition at the poker table. And who better to tell us than 11-time World Series of Poker bracelet winner, Phil Hellmuth.
Listen, how do you assess an opponent? Well, there's very basic things like, does he shuffle the chips? Well, if he shuffled the chips, he's played a lot of poker, right? So there's little things like that. How does he talk about poker? You know, does he talk about, EV? Does he talk about, how many big blinds? And do you hear him having like strategies about optimal, talks about optimal strategies with his friends. So that's someone who probably has some experience. I mean, you can classify players. You can think, all right, this guy's an internet player, therefore he's a little bit more aggressive. You might think, all right, this is like an old school pro, he's a little bit less aggressive. And so you can try to kind of assess players and decide what you can do to beat them. You may decide that you're going to try to bluff someone who's been making a lot of bluffs. And so assessing players is the first step in optimizing a strategy to beat them.
Well, I've been assessing my partner here at the broadcast desk, and everything is leading for me to call. I should definitely call here.
Good call. Phil and Steve Gross are the big chip leaders right now, very close to each other. Leo Wolpert, the one-time chip leader at this final table, is now the short stack. Blinds continuing on at 20 and 40,000 with a 5,000 chip ante.
Seat 2, Steve is going to be first to act. And he will fold over to Matt.
How old are you? 28. Oh, okay. You're 2 years older.
Matt folds, and now to Phil. Phil's got 9-7 of hearts.
600,000? Not, maybe. I think I started with 6.
That's right.
But a little under.
Small blind assessing, big blinds stack.
I'm all in.
Phil makes an all-in move here with 9-7, and Leo waking up with Queen 10.
I call.
Makes the call. And Leo is going to find that he's ahead with Queen 10. Phil with 2 live cards, hoping to get lucky here and knock out the one-time chip leader.
Are they both going to make a straight flush?
Yeah.
If Leo can survive here, he will double up to just over 1.2 million in chips.
And here's the flop. It is Queen 5-10. Leo says good flop. I think so.
Leo's got top 2 here. Phil needs a whole lot of help to come from behind.
And the turn is a 6 of hearts.
Well, now the board turned into a daytime soap opera. Phil will be hoping to find a heart or an 8, but can't have the 10 of hearts. That'd give Leo a boat.
And here we go. The river is another 6, and Leo is going to double up through our chip leader.
Just a flesh wound for Phil Collins, but Leo, a big healer, going over 1 million in chips now.
Well, Fred, if you can't take aggressive shoves and calls with Queen 10, this final table is not the place for you.
These players all know each other. They have a lot of history with each other from the online days.
Action's going to be on Phil again.
Phil is going to limp in with a suited Jack 3.
And now to Leo. Leo currently awaiting the results of his Nevada State bar exam.
It's ace 10 from Matt Marafioti. Matt started playing poker when he was 17. His parents not fans of that, so they installed firewalls on their home computers to keep him from going to poker sites. But then he went to college and started playing again. Actually borrowed $18 from a college friend, and then a week later had it up to $48,000.
I still find that hard to believe.
Matt's going to check his option here with ace 10. Going to try to play it a little cagey against the chip leader.
And let's see the flop. It's Jack 10-9.
Well, both players catch a piece of this. Phil has top pair. Matt has second pair. Matt checks.
Action now on Phil Collins.
Phil is going to play cautiously. He's going to check.
Let's go ahead and see the turn card, please.
And here we go. The turn is a 6 of clubs. And Matt again, first to act.
Matt's originally from Toronto, Canada. Splits his time between Vegas and Toronto. He can play online back home. When asked what he'd do with the prize money, he said he needs to take first just to break even on the month. Brother, I know the feeling.
65,000 is Matt's bet. Back to Phil.
Phil with top pair and a lousy kicker on a board really ripe with a lot of draws. And Phil is going to make the call.
Yeah, he's not jumping for joy with that 3 kicker, no doubt about it. Maybe if it was a 4 kicker, he'd be a little bit more excited, but a 3, absolutely not. All right, so Phil makes the call, and so we will see the river. Matt checks dark. The river is an ace of diamonds.
And that's a great card from Matt. He now has aces up.
Action's going to be on Phil.
Check.
And Fred, I really don't think that Matt checking dark cost him anything there on the river. I don't think Phil was going to pay him off on the river anyway.
Should have bet. I wouldn't have called. Yeah, I know.
Well, you don't get to the November 9 by going crazy with top pair, weak kicker. Phil slowed down and saved himself some money there.
Blinds are up 25 and 50,000 with a 5K ante.
Steve Gross has deuce 5, and that's going into the muck. Over to Matt Marafioti.
Okay, cover one eye for me, Fred. Tobey Maguire, do you see it?
Oh, yeah.
That's totally Tobey Maguire in seat 4.
Nice. Get his
Spider-Man!
Phil Collins with a suited king 4 in the small blind, and he's going to go all in again.
Doing it to Leo one more time, and Leo's going to make the call with ace 6, and this time Phil is going to be the one at risk, and once again he's going to find himself behind. And here we go. Phil Collins' tournament life on the line. The flop is Jack 10 deuce.
Leo still ahead with ace 6.
And the turn card is a king.
Phil pulls ahead but gives Leo some outs. Now he needs a queen or an ace on the river to knock out the one-time November 9er.
And the river is a 7. And so this time Phil will become victorious. He will double up. Last time when Phil shoved into Leo, Leo won. This time, Phil wins.
What a roller coaster for Leo. First he doubles up, and a couple hands later he doubles up Phil.
And Fred, now he's down to just under 400,000 in chips. We'll find out if Leo can stay alive and take down this final table when we come back.
I'm looking forward to more HPT events. I wish I could do them all, but unfortunately can't do them all, but definitely you'll see me in future events, and hopefully you'll see me at the final table again.
It was great. I heard about the tournament last minute and came out to play it. I live real close to the Palms. Came for day 1C, and I thought it was a well-run tournament. It's been nice Nice tournament.
I've really enjoyed this tournament. And I think everybody here has been super nice and very competent, friendly staff.
I've really enjoyed my experience with the HPT. This tournament has a phenomenal structure, and the way it's run, it's been run just as good as any tournament I've ever played in. The people here definitely care and they know what they're doing, and it's really, really nice when you have a tournament staff that knows the answers to questions that they should know.
My HPT experience has been great so far. This is my first event. I played only one starting day, 1B. I think it's more luck than skill, but things have just kind of been going smoothly. So far, thumbs up for HPT.
Well, Fred, I think it is unanimous. The players love the new structure on the HPT. What poker player doesn't love more chips and more time in the blind levels?
Me. I just like to go all in right away. Steve Gross is the new chip leader right now with 42% of the chips in play. His stack has grown almost 300,000 chips since we last checked in.
Matt's first to act, and he will be folding over to Phil.
Over to Phil in 5.
Deuce 4 of spades to the muck.
Over to Leo.
Leo's got queen 3 and all the chips in the middle.
Leo compares the role of poker in his life to Robert De Niro's role in the movie Raging Bull, but less violent and hopefully less tragic, he says.
Well, the decision is now on our chip leader, Steve Gross.
The dealer is counting out the call amount.
303,005.
And Steve is going to call with Jack 10 offsuit.
Well, here we go again for Leo. He's been behind, he's been ahead, he's 1 for 1 in these. He's going to this flop ahead.
And let's see if he can hold on. The flop is ace 8 10. And Leo now fouls behind.
Leo hoping to find a queen on the turn of the river here.
And the turn is a 5.
No help for Leo. It's a queen and only a queen on the river, or he will go to the rail.
Let's go ahead and see. The river card.
And the river. It is a deuce, and so Leo Wolpert, who started this final table as our chip leader, probably a little bit disappointed not making it into the top 3, leaves in 4th place.
A little disappointed with how I played. I think I probably made a few incorrect folds, and 3-betting the aces against Terry early on might have been a mistake when I could have flatted and maybe gotten a shove, but I had never actually seen him fold to a 3-bet, so I figured he would, give me I'd get some value from my aces pre-flop.
Thank you so much, Leo, for playing this week. And Leo was trying to do what hasn't been done on the HPT. We've had champions win an HPT event and then follow that success up by winning a World Series of Poker bracelet. Leo was trying to be the first bracelet winner to then go on to win an HPT title. That will now have to wait.
We do have a November 9er at our final table. He could be the first November 9er to win an HPT event. He's in this pot with 8 deuce. Matt Marafioti wakes up with ace 4.
Just another example how when you come to Las Vegas, it's the land of opportunity. Many things might happen.
Ellis Island and then Las Vegas.
Matt checks his option with ace 4 of spades. So Matt and Phil will be heads up. And here comes the flop. It is deuce queen 8.
That's a good flop for Phil. He's got 2 pair. Matt's sitting on just ace high right now.
Must feel really good to flop 2 pair with 8 deuce.
We do not possess that skill.
No, I don't know how to pull that rabbit out of a hat.
Well, Phil's not going to let this go by without a bet. He is going to fire 70,000, and now Matt with ace high and no draw, no pair, is going to fold.
And once again, Phil lets Matt pick one of his cards, showed that he had a bottom pair, good enough to take the hand down.
And then there were 3.
More poker from the Palms when we come back on the HPT. Welcome back to the HPT, where we are 3-handed at our final table at the Palms Casino Resort in Las Vegas.
We have seen some great poker being played by great players at this final table. And now that we're 3-handed, I expect the action to get hotter and the ranges to get wider. Let's get back to the felt.
Well, as we continue three-handed at this final table, Steve and Phil continue to hold a majority of the chips that are in play. And for Steve Gross, this has been a chip lead that he's held here for a good portion of this final table.
Well, don't count out Matt Marafioti yet. He still has 19 big blinds in his stack. A double up puts him just under $2 million and right back in it.
10-6 of spades for Phil.
And Phil is going to play the hand. He's going to just limp in.
Over to Steve in seat 2 with Queen Jack of Diamonds in the small blind.
130.
130,000 is the raise from Steve. Matt will fold back to Phil.
And Phil reaching for his chip stack instead of his cards. All right, here we go. Phil makes the call.
And the flop is 8, Jack, Queen with 2 spades.
Well, I guess if you're going to play a suited 10-6, this is the flop you want to hit. He's got a flush draw and a gut shot straight draw. Steve has flopped top 2 pair.
And he is first to act. With the 2 spades on board, this probably isn't going to be cheap. Probably between $250 and $275 is what I would guess that Steve Gross is going to cut out of his stack.
And you are only 100,000 off. He's
Wow.
going to bet 150,000.
That's great for Phil. Absolutely. I will call that now and twice tomorrow. Heck, he might even raise here.
He's definitely not raising.
You maybe want to put dinner at 9 Steakhouse on that comment, Fred Bevel?
I would. Dinner at 9 Steakhouse that he just flat calls here.
Well, he's not going anywhere. He is grabbing chips, and it looks like he is going to make the call.
Ooh, that's going to be a nice T-bone.
I'm going to have the 24-ounce bone-in ribeye. My friend here will have a glass of water.
Phil hoping to find a 9 or a spade on this turn.
All right, here we go. The turn is a 9 of spades. How about that?
Dealer takes requests, I guess. Phil has taken a huge lead in this hand.
Steve not drawing dead yet, though. Still can make a full house on the river. And he's going to be first to act. See if he now slows down.
Steve checks over to Phil.
And he does.
Now will Phil fire out a bet, or will he give a free river card? That 9 put a straight draw out there, put a flush draw out there. A lot of things that beat 2 pair.
The question is, whatever Phil bets here on the turn, is Steve going to come along to see that river? Even if he thinks he might have just been beat on the turn.
250,000 is the decision for Steve.
Boy, he makes this call. He's getting 5-1 on his money to see that river card. He makes the call. We'll have over $1 million in this pot.
The 9 of spades, a horrible card for Steve. Now he's in a spot here. Steve with over 800,000 in career earnings. Hoping to add an HPT championship to the resume. And Steve is going to make the call. He'll be hoping for a queen or a jack on the river, but not the queen of spades. That'd give Phil a straight flush.
And the only thing that might slow Phil down would have been another spade on the river, but it comes an 8 of diamonds.
Well, that does pair the board. Steve with his 2 pair here is hoping to get to a showdown without having to put any more money in.
Could we get a check behind, please? This pot already supersized with over 1 million chips in it. Phil working through all the numbers and the possibilities.
Trying to pick the right amount that's going to get called.
Or wondering if he should even bet at all.
That paired board might scare him a little bit. Higher flush could be out there.
Check. have a flush.
And Phil checks behind, and he does have the winning hand. And Fred, I don't know if he was going to get any more chips there. And a bet, boy, if your opponent had flopped a set and just really pulled the carpet out from underneath you, I think you'd just be happy. I'll take 1.12 million in chips. I'll take the chip lead and be happy with what I've got.
Well, Chris, to quote the great Danny Green, they were who we thought they were.
So now the question is, will it be Steve, Matt, or Phil who will win this HPT championship at the Palms? Only one way to find out. Come back next time. Now, do you think you've got what it takes to sit at our final table and win the unreal cash? Well, then log on to hptpoker.com to find out about our upcoming events. For James Larson and Fred Bevel, I'm Chris Hansen. We'll see you next time right here on the HPT.